Bob Becker isn't just running ultra marathons at 79, he's taking on some of the toughest, most brutal races in the world. Races longer than 100 miles, races that he nears 80. In fact, by the time this episode is released, he would have turned 80. So happy birthday, Bob. And then there was this one moment in this conversation that gave me chills. Bob tells the story of missing the 48-hour cutoff at Badwater, something that might feel like failure on paper. They are the ones we will never fully see. So if you have ever thought it's too late or wondered whether your efforts really matter, this conversation will stay with you.
Florida, in my condominium apartment. For breakfast this morning, I had a healthy granola with some almond milk, a bunch of fruit, some coffee, some quality bread with peanut butter, and I'm ready to go.
Amazing. Well, you sound fortified, and I'm curious, put the effort in.
You've earned it. That's right.
Amazing. Actually, an old surfing friend of mine, we used to always joke that, one always needs to be earning one's brekkie. And brekkie being short for breakfast. And when I started this podcast for a little bit, I toyed with that idea of calling this podcast "Earning Your Break." I'm still a little baby here. I want to start off talking of age. I want to start by painting a contrast. Most people your age are winding down, maybe enjoying retirement, spending time with family, taking it easy. Meanwhile, you are grinding through 100-mile plus races in brutal conditions. Yeah, what is it about this challenge that keeps calling you back?
I suppose it's that type A personality, the old competitive spirit. I enjoy it. I still love it. My life has been largely oriented around ultra running for the last 20 years, or close to it. So actually more than that, with running itself, but also for the last 17, I've been a full-time race director producing ultramarathon races. So basically everything I know and all my friends and all of it it's all geared around this passion of mine, presumably healthy things, moving. And that for me is a huge motivator to keep doing this as long as I can and as long as I still want to. I think probably in my 40s or early 50s, I might have done a 5K associated with a business conference or something, but I wasn't a runner. When I was 57 in 2002, I got a call from some friends of mine in Minnesota where I had just lived. I moved from there to Florida in early 2001. And they said, we're going to run Grandma's Marathon. I kind of got the disease just a little bit. And I wound up actually later in the year, moving over to a different group, kind of a faster group of runners, and continued to train with them for a long, long time. And in 2004, one of them said to me, have you ever heard of the Marathon des Sables? So the following week, and I was very intrigued by the whole idea. So the next week I went back and talked to Jared, this friend who had asked me the question initially. And I said, don't you have a birthday ending in a 0 next April? And he said, yes, I'm turning 40. And I was turning 60. And I said, Jay, why don't we give ourselves a birthday present and do this race? And that's how it started. His wife hasn't talked to me since, by the way. So yeah, we took it seriously. We both trained well. That's in fact when I met Lisa Smith-Batchen. I'm sure we'll be talking about Lisa at some point. I went to Jay Batchen and Lisa to their training camp for Marathon des Sables. That's how I met them. And I went out to Morocco in April, and it was just a mesmerizing experience. It was for me absolutely life-changing. I just fell in love with the challenge. It's very much an integral part of the spirit of the sport. And actually, the story I love to tell was my first 100-mile individual race in 2007 when I wasn't prepared for the very, very cold weather at night. I was really freezing. It was a race of 4 25-mile loops. Rocky Raccoon was the race. And in the middle of the night, late at night, I was almost too cold to continue. And a runner came through, saw what was going on. And I didn't have any clothes to put on. He was layered up and literally took a shirt off his back and gave me his shirt so that I could continue the race. My literal shirt.
Sounds like your personality type is to say yes. Is it?
Yes. Yes, it
is. Is it the kind of, is it your, yeah. I'm just wondering if there's like some sort of a peek into who you are as a person, Bob. Like, you didn't even own a pair of proper running shoes and you accepted this invite. Sounds like your personality type is to say yes. Is it?
Yes. Yes, it
is. Is it the kind of, is it your, yeah. I'm just wondering if there's like some sort of a peek into who you are as a person, Bob. Like, you didn't even own a pair of proper running shoes and you accepted this invite.
Other people can do it. Why can't I? That sort of thing. I remember the first time I ever tried barefoot water skiing. I mean, why do such a crazy thing? Well, because my friends were doing it, and why couldn't I? So, and I've never let age be within reason. I've never let age be a consideration. If somebody else can do it, and then qualifying for Boston, say, okay, I've got to run Boston. That was also the end of the story. In theory, I wasn't looking at the long term at all. I had no idea what ultras were, as I explained earlier. So, that it just evolved. It just happened. There was no life plan there. That's for sure.
This is incredible, Bob. Like, you were in your late 50s. You had no background in, let's say, formal running. And something happened when you went to Minnesota after doing a bit of training. Two things I can see of. One is you obviously did quite.
I wasn't really playing sports here at that time. So maybe I was looking for something else to do and it just fell in my lap. And it looked like, okay, I can do this. And maybe I can run a little faster the next time, which in fact happened at Boston. And it just, again, because I started training with a group and had not been living here too long, I wound up making friends. My social life expanded right away, and it became part of my life, and remains that way. So I think it was kind of the same piece. It was partly it was timing. That makes sense to you?
Yeah, 100%. No, that makes so much sense. That some beautiful things came together between your move to a new place, your let's say maybe this timing of this opportunity falling into your lap when you were ready for it, and then the opportunity running offered for you to make friends in a new place and find this community.
I certainly enjoyed it. I enjoyed the beauty of running that course, for example. And interestingly, I have one sister, and my sister's son, Adam, is an Olympian. Adam Goucher and his wife, Kara Goucher, are Olympians. And Kara is from Duluth, Minnesota, where Grandma's Marathon takes place. So I got to spend some time with her family up there. And certainly their excellence as runners is not only a source of pride, but a source of motivation for me as well. And so when I ran this race and did well, I thought, should consider doing more of this. And again, of course, the Boston motivation was a big help. And then again, train, and meanwhile, becoming part of this group of runners and creating a regular Saturday morning and Thursday night running routine that I hadn't done before. It all cemented the whole picture for me as a new resident of Florida and as somebody who was no longer playing basketball, but found a new sport that maybe I could stick with for a while. Yeah, and so that's kind of how it evolved. Again, there really wasn't a plan, but there was a little piece here, a little piece there that contributed to the good timing that put this thing in my lap, and with which I then kept going with it. That's really kind of my best answer for you.
Thanks for sharing about the Olympians in your.
Well, I think part of it's genetics, but a lot of it was I was in pretty good shape because I worked out and had been for years and years. So my core strength is good, and I guess my running style is such that I've really never had knee problems or most typical runner issues. So whatever that running thing is, it is a natural thing for me. Plus, again, I think the idea of having a core, a strong foundation, is what enables me to go out there and do that sort of thing. And I'm always up for a challenge, always up for something that I hadn't thought about before or had never tried before. So if there was a period from 2003 to 2006 when I was actually commuting from Fort Lauderdale up to Northern Virginia, the DC suburbs, I would fly up on Sunday night, work all week, come back on Friday night. I did that for almost 3 years. So since I was there during the week, I joined a gym up there and got involved with a kind of a heavy-duty boot camp group that was led by a guy whose name was Sean Birch. And Sean, among other things, in 2004 set the speed ascent record up Mount Kilimanjaro. I mean, he's a mountaineer like yourself, a climber. He's done a lot of first attempts in different places. In any event, that was in 2004. He came back and he said to those bunch of us, in 2002 was my first marathon. And then in 2003, I ran Boston. In June of 2003, I went back to Minnesota because my friends were going back there. So I went up to just run it with them again. And that was really the last marathon I ever ran, other than I ran a few for training purposes for ultras. But I never really ran another marathon again to see if I could beat my time or anything like that. So that was 2000 and into 2003. Again, in 2004, this running friend asked me if I'd ever heard of MDS, Marathon des Sables. And when I checked that out, I was absolutely fascinated by the idea that you could spend 7 days running almost 160 miles in the Sahara Desert in Morocco, and how it worked, a stage race where each day you run a certain number of miles, called a stage. You basically sleep in a tent with 9 of your was hobbling. I wound up going to the medical tent with 2 days left to go. There was the race includes a 50-mile day. I had completed the 50-mile day. There were only 2 short days left, but I was hardly able to walk at all. And so I went to the tent and they took an x-ray with their portable x-ray machine and said, yeah, you've got a fracture and we're pulling your number. You can't finish. When I was devastated, although it turned out it was the right decision. So I came home. I wound up having surgery. I had a couple of pins put in my hip, putting me back together again. And that was in 2005, and it was a slow process healing because it wasn't 25 anymore, as my surgeon kept telling me when I would complain about how long recovery was taking. I don't have a death wish. The second thing, going back to Marathon des Sables, while I wound up with that fracture, I absolutely knew that I could have otherwise done that race. I mean, there was no question in my mind that I wanted to do it again or do something like it again. That, again, age was not the reason I didn't finish that race. I didn't finish it because, unfortunately, I broke a bone. And so that was motivating in the sense that I just knew that I could do more and wanted the opportunity to do more. I didn't know what the next big thing would be, but anyway, that was where my head was at that point. So as these other opportunities came together, and Lisa was part of that, being in touch with her and asking for her suggestions about maybe what other races should I consider. that's kind of how that's where my head was, and that's kind of how my ultra journey began or continued after those temporary setbacks. I met Lisa Smith Batchen at the training camp in advance of Marathon des Sables. She and her husband Jay were actually the American representatives of this race, which is based in France, or at least was at the time. And so their training camp was very specific to preparing for that race. And I learned so much. It was incredible. And, kind of fell in love with both of them. They're great people. And she's the most positive person in the world. But she's also a realist in many ways. When it comes to me and my training and my age, the training regimen that she provides for me would be very different from the training regimen she would provide for you. Each of her clients is specific. The training regimen is specific to them, their ability, their condition, including their age, what their work schedule allows, and all the rest of it. So I just found that with Lisa, it was a very, very good fit, and that it wasn't one size fits all. I knew that I was in good hands. And in fact, I've never really been injured, and I've always been ready at Badwater again this summer, which I'm sure we'll talk about. Lisa will be my crew chief at Badwater. So there's a close relationship there, and she just, she's my mentor in every way.
Sure. Lisa is amazing, and I've heard that from different people now on her ability to identify every individual's unique needs and then provide an appropriate training plan.
I don't know that Lisa necessarily originated it, but it's certainly the first time I'd ever heard of such a thing. So it's a technique basically where you wear a waist belt with a rope attached to it, and about 12 feet behind you, it's attached to like an SUV tire that you pull along the ground. And what it does is it creates drag to go, including a 13-mile climb up Mount Whitney to the finish line. And my back started giving out, and I started leaning, not to the side, but leaning forward. And I just couldn't straighten up. It was really bothering me a lot. And by the time I got into Lone Pine, I was almost bent in half. I mean, my body, I looked like an L shape or something. And it wasn't so much pain as it was just the inability to stand up straight and to move in a normal way. And it was putting pressure on my legs, and it was not good. Well, I still had a lot of time in theory to finish basically, I couldn't do it. I went to the start line, but I just missed the first cutoff at 30 miles, and I was done. And absolutely the most devastating race that I've ever had. And yet it wasn't anything I could really do about it, But the point is, when you don't finish a race, it's very, very frustrating. The best example was 3 years ago at Badwater, 2022. And I was trying to set the record as the oldest finisher at 77 at the time. And I was doing well. I was on track. My time was good. But the further down the course I got, I think the problem probably started after about 100 miles. So I had another 35 miles. My share of DNFs, did not finish races as well. Marathon des Sables being the first one, because they wouldn't let me with a broken femur. And it's always humbling, but you also learn a lot from it, which is that it's I like to say, and it's not original, I suppose, but the pain unless it's a real life-threatening kind of a thing or permanent injury kind of a thing, pain is temporary, and the bragging rights when you finish are forever. You chose to be out there, and the idea, the sense of accomplishment when crossing the finish line for me is, so I started up the mountain, and by the time I got within about a mile of the finish line, not only had my back seized up and was totally worthless, but my legs began to seize up as well. And I literally had to use my hands to help my legs one step at a time. I'd go 12 or 15 steps, and I had to stop and take a break and try to straighten up a little bit and then do it again. And as I approached the finish line, even closer, that just wasn't working. So turned out that the race medical director was walking alongside me, being sure that I wasn't that I was okay. That first of all, I was lucid. Secondly, that I wasn't going to have permanent damage. But I wasn't going to not finish that day. And I didn't care what was involved. And I just was bound and determined to make it. And there were a lot of people up there urging me on and helping me, encouraging me to do what I could to finish. And I suppose that's the best example I can give you of a kind of a tough day.
Wow. Well, you were dogged and creative in not giving up and making sure you completed the race. Bob, any specific mental strategies that you have created, adopted, or honed over the years that have helped you push through these dark moments? Because like we talked about earlier, yes, it is really all mental once you get past a certain point.
I can assure you of that. I'm very much in the moment. I'm thinking of that next step. I'm thinking of that next footfall. And importantly, I'm thinking of getting to a point 2 miles or 5 miles up the road. In other words, taking a small bite out of this 100-mile race. That's my goal. And then once I'm there, then it's the next one. Some races you can't do that. But music, typically not. More often it's an audiobook of some kind, and it might just be something totally frivolous, like an adventure thing or a spy thing. And other times it might be historical, but it's more than likely not too serious, but something that interests me so I can focus and it keeps me going. But yeah, I really don't have any specific mantra or other than, again, always keeping my eyes on that finish line, keep your eyes on the prize kind of thing. That I'm not going to DNF this. I am much, much more careful. I just can't do it. So not only is training for that kind of a steep technical mountain race not realistic, but I wouldn't make the cutoffs anyway because I'd be too slow, too careful, too trepidatious. So part of it is picking a race that makes sense. And in a couple of cases where I've done really, really well, I had chosen a race where I really thought, given the circumstances of the race, that I had a chance to win it or to break a record or something like that. So, yeah, I train. I select my races very carefully. There are only so many I have left in me, so I'm careful of what I choose.
Certainly, yes. No, I think you point to that before as well, which is the importance of being realistic and planned, but then also I think being willing to maybe rewrite the script a little bit, but because again, like there isn't a script out there for people who are pushing 80, running for like 100 plus miles in Death Valley.
Well, part of it is recognizing when I do something that is, at least for me, a little bit on the extraordinary side, is that, yeah, I can do that. I can set a goal, look a little bigger than maybe to most people would make sense, and be able to accomplish it. And as the years go by, I'm still able to do those things, so that it once again gets back to the notion that there's no reason that age has to stand in the way of adventure and excitement and doing difficult things and remaining active in this world of sports. And so it's sort of like each time I'm able to do something, it motivates me to. I'm still 80 years old, but the challenging myself is still very important to me. And I'm sure it will be for a long time. And by actually being able to accomplish something, or know that I could have, except for some odd circumstance like getting sick, it motivates me to continue to look for the next big thing, or just the next fun adventure to have. That's all. Running with friends in Europe or something, which I did last year. It wasn't a race. It was just a one-off adventure that was absolutely fun, a blast, at a great time. And we ran a lot of miles, but it was something I was able to do and absolutely loved doing. So in April of 2007, 5 of us went down to Key Largo at the beginning of the Keys and ran 100 miles to Key West with a group of 7 supporting us, and thought that, this could become something. This could be a race, could be viable. And so the next year, 2008, in May, the Keys 100 was born, with 131 people running the distance. And as the race director, I had absolutely no idea what I was doing, learned it all the hard way. There was a momentous change in my life at that point. It was around the time of the real estate crisis and the economic collapse here in the United States, well, not just here in the States, but and without going into unnecessary detail at this point, I was looking for something else to do and decided to take a vow of poverty and become a race director. And and that's what happened. And so for the last 17 years, I've been a full-time race director, creating new races and producing them, and really introducing thousands of people to the sport. Well, it's a fair question. I don't. I'm not a religious person, but I am a spiritual person and a humanist, I suppose. So, doing the Camino de Santiago and winding up at Santiago de Compostela at the Basilica was a fabulous experience, but it wasn't a religious experience for me. But it was meditatively, it was important. So I don't have a real meditation practice, but in a formal way. But informally, I do, and part of that is the reading I do. But I don't really do yoga, which I should, and I recommend to runners. And I don't specifically have a meditation practice. But again, it's something that is a great idea. And if it's for you, if it's something that works for you, and I recommend to runners. And I don't specifically have a meditation practice. But again, it's something that is a great idea. It's a diet that is based on the China study, and you not only don't eat anything with a mother or a face, or egg products, or butter, or milk, or any of that, but also very, very little oil. This diet has been a very important factor in my not deteriorating and remaining strong and remaining healthy enough to do these things. We've lost our baby fat, and it certainly is very, very heart healthy. The diet, again, is extremely important. And I've always been somebody that's been proactive in terms of medical care. So I never shy away from having a test done or having something checked early, like my prostate. So if there's a sign that there could be an issue, I don't really do supplements. I do a couple of vitamins, because a non-meat protein diet can shortchange you in a couple of areas. My wife, Suzanne, is not only a great cook, but somebody who is very on top of the whole nutritional side of things. We don't sit down at every meal and count calories and count grams of protein and so on, but we're pretty much on top of what those numbers are. Our bodies are not the same. So we found over these last 2.5 years on this diet that what we're doing is working for us. Yeah, that breakfast, and I do eat it every day. And
Okay.
a lot of salads, a lot of greens, a lot of vegetables. Certain, vegan butter, for example, is something that makes that slice of whole grain bread a heck of a lot better tasting than without it. And I've really become to rely a lot on peanut butter.
Are you getting regular checkups, regular blood work? How have you learned to listen to your body better?
Yes, absolutely, on a regular checkup basis, right? And I see a cardiologist twice a year. I see a pulmonologist a couple of times a year. Just keep an eye on some things that are going on. Again, trying to be as proactive as possible. I actually smoked from the time I was 18 to the time I was 28, believe it or not. And is foolish as that was, back then, uh, many, if not most people, smoked. So the first and most important thing I ever did for myself was give that up, which wasn't easy, but it cold turkey done. I think the third and last time that I played basketball with guys twice my size and caught an elbow in the nose that broke my nose for the third time, I said, yeah, probably I should give up contact sports.
Bob, we will be cheering for you for Badwater coming up this summer. Wish you all the best. Thanks so much for coming on Ageless Athlete and for sharing your wonderful story.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you, Kush.